Today is letter N, not personalizing. And it is a bit of a heavier one, so just keep that in mind as we're going through this. But first, I want you to comment below about how the empathy reflection challenge went yesterday. Now, as you're thinking about that or writing that in there, empathy is one of the hardest skills to master in parenting. Like, why? Honestly, some of the reasons are we live in a really fast-paced society, and so pausing to reflect on how our child is feeling in this moment and then empathizing, it takes a lot of awareness and practice. So keep that in mind. And also, most of us don't show ourselves any empathy. And when we don't acknowledge our own experience with empathy, it's very hard to do that for others or for our children. So as a psychologist, you might think, well, empathy comes to you naturally, right? I mean, Julia, of course you have empathy, you're a psychologist. But I'll tell you that my master's supervisor actually literally said to me, you have no empathy. Was I surprised? Confused? A little defensive? Yes. But I decided to hear her out as a very proper South Asian. I was raised to always listen to my elders, and while she wasn't that much older than me, she was still a supervisor. And so I stopped, paused, kind of sat with that for a few minutes, and then said, okay, let me hear what she means. Anyways, that and some other things in my life led me to do my own therapy. Now, you might think also that all psychologists all do therapy. They don't. Right? This was an intentional choice. Now, parents, you may not want to hear this, but doing the work on yourself, whether that be through talk therapy or some other fascinating alternative, I've done lots of them because I love exploring, please do the work. Our children, they will have challenges, and they will be challenging, as we'll hear today in Not Personalizing. But if we don't do the work on ourselves, we can't truly be there for our children the way they need. We can send them to therapy, and that's great, but if they come home to someone who's anxious or feeling overwhelmed, then they're actually going to just resonate back to that. So let's do the work on ourselves so that we can help us and our children. Okay, for today's vagus nerve exercise, we are going to, well, we're not going to, but we're going to talk about gargling. Yes, I said gargling. Now you might be thinking, okay, it's day 9, she can't think of anything anymore, so now she's making stuff up. And I assure you that I'm not. It actually has a similar effect to humming. And while I wish I could tell you let's go gargle right now, we don't have the time for that, but I will invite you to go and just do a quick gargle after we're done today's live. Now in Dr. Habib's book, who I talked about before, Dr. Nawaz Habib, Upgrade Your Vagus Nerve, he talks about the benefits of these surprising and fun exercises. All right. Not personalizing, as I said, is one of the hardest parts of parenting. I mean, seriously, how do we not personalize it when our child says, I hate you, you're the worst? Hearing things like that, they hit us at our core. It feels awful, right? We think things in our mind like, why don't they understand how much I do for them? Some of us in those moments get really quiet and take in their words as guilt or shame. Others, still usually originating from a place of guilt, react angrily or with hurtful jabs right back. Like, you're such an ungrateful child, you have no idea what I've sacrificed for you, and you're calling me the worst? Maybe I should just leave then. So yes, some days as parents it feels like we should just throw our hands up in the air and go hide. I've been there for sure. So let's look at some more common scenarios where parents take reactions, behaviors, comments from their children personally. Then we'll look at how we feel and how we typically respond. So before beginning, in each scenario, one option for a response to how we're feeling is the silent treatment, to withdraw, or what our kids experience as withholding love. This is where the whole conditional love piece comes in. Now this isn't only true for silent treatment, it's for the other ones as well, but I want to bring this to your attention. Now you may be doing this because you can't handle the moment and need to step away, which is totally okay. If you're being yelled at or screamed at or overwhelmed, it's totally okay to step away if you communicate that to them. Hey, I need a minute. Or this might be because you want to somehow teach them a lesson. You know, I'm going to stay quiet and let them think about what they've done. Sometimes it's a combination of both. But in the following examples, I want you to reflect on whether that is your typical response or if one of the following responses that we'll be talking about are more in line with your reaction. Whether it's silent treatment or one of these, just remember we're here to become aware of unhelpful strategies and shift into fair ones. Okay, so here are examples of when we tend to personalize and how we might react. 1, when your child refuses to listen to you, even after you've asked them to do something 1,000 times. How do we feel? Disrespected. And it can trigger anger, frustration, and if it's in front of others, embarrassment. Then we can end up saying something like, what's wrong with you? You never listen. You're impossible. Another possibility, when your child disregards you. This one is usually more from teens. And let's say you say something, anything at all, really, and then all of a sudden they just roll their eyes at you and say a sarcastic, yeah, whatever. Now, that one, it definitely gets your blood boiling, right? And then you might say, who do you think you are? Right? Do not roll your eyes at me, pulling that rank. Another option, when a child tries to give you feedback, they have the courage to do this, and they come to you and they say, I don't like it when you yell at me. We can feel surprised, of course, guilty, and unfortunately we usually respond with something like, well, I wouldn't have to yell at you now, would I, if you would just listen? I guess I'm the worst parent ever. When a child has a tantrum, particularly in public, we take that one personally. We feel overwhelmed and embarrassed. It's like we're failing as a parent. And then we say something like, fine, you know what? I can't handle this anymore. Have the chocolate bar. Just stop crying. Now here's a more subtle one and the last one for today. But our child is struggling with math homework. But you're amazing at math and you believe it's a critical life skill. So we feel scared, confused, and then we start getting frustrated and angry. Our response is, come on, You can do this. Why are you having so much trouble? I don't get it. This is common sense. So we get agitated by our child's responses or behaviors when they're not what we expect, because at some level, we're triggered into feeling like we aren't doing a good enough job raising them. There are so many opportunities for us to take our children's behaviors personally, but I am going to stop there for today. I think you're getting the idea. So what is the impact on our children when we take their behaviors personally? Well, they feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, and disconnected from us. When they're having a hard time or don't have the capacity in that moment to be the ideal human we wish they would be, they don't need us to react to them. They need us to see them, soothe them, and then maybe guide them. When we take things personally, we can't help them navigate the big emotions they're feeling. We can't help them learn how to wait for that chocolate bar. We definitely can't help them learn math. Instead, we end up labeling them, dismissing them, and in the long run, undermining their confidence. But what about the impact it has on us? It's so hard to parent when our kids are being so difficult and even mean. I could say, well, you know what? You're the parent, so it's not about you. But let's have some self-compassion. It's very hard to not personalize when our children are basically attacking us or embarrassing us. If I can't give the silent treatment and I can't respond like I did in those examples, am I supposed to just take it then? The simple answer is no, and I'll share with you how we can respond. But first, we need to help ourselves. So while we are parents, we're humans first. We have our own difficult or traumatic childhood experiences. We've learned generational patterns that may not be helpful. And we have epigenetics influencing how we react. The reality, taking things personally, is part of our survival instinct. Now, if I'm being attacked, I should protect myself by fighting back. Maybe I'll flee, maybe I'll freeze, maybe I will do something called fawning. So some of us fight, right? Especially after hearing those hurtful words, we yell back. Some of us flee, we just step away, we walk away, I can't do this, right? Some of us freeze, we actually go numb and dissociate when those highly stressful situations come up. And many of us fawn, which is a form of people-pleasing. This one's very common in South Asian families. Right? When we're feeling overwhelmed or attacked by our children, one form of protecting ourselves is to give in or to please them so they stop. Now, all of these were learned when we were little, right, as ways to deal with stressors. And they were adaptive at the time. It's just that in parenting, they're no longer adaptive, so we have to help ourselves. So when our child is dysregulated, rude, disrespectful, sarcastic, our system, it does go into that threat mode. And we end up utilizing one of those survival instincts to cope. Unfortunately, that's not helpful in parenting. Now, I am aware of the time. I realize I'm going over the 10 minutes, but it is a little longer, but this is an important one, so hopefully you'll stick around with me. Or watch again at the replay. So the idea here, this keeps us stuck, right? This way of responding in this vicious cycle, and no one ends up benefiting. So instead, we need self-compassion and more empathic ways to soothe ourselves so we don't personalize our kids' behaviors. And once we learn to be more self-compassionate and soothe ourselves, then we can stay present and work with them on navigating whatever it is that is happening within them to be that way. But how? Right? It's so easy to fall into one of those survival instincts. Now remember Be Fabulous from yesterday? Well, it's not just helpful to use with our children. It works on us too. So let me illustrate. We can pull on any of the examples above. Basically, your child's having a meltdown for whatever reasons, and they are screaming at you or being sarcastic with you. You hear that piercing cry or that attitude, and your whole body's flooded with overwhelm and a feeling of disrespect. Before the Fair Parent Challenge, you may have activated your fight survival instincts, right, and just yelled back at them. But now, because you've been practicing being a fair parent, you remember, when you're triggered, you can be fabulous. So here's how it looks. You would breathe. Same as yesterday. Breathe 4 in, 6 out through the nose a few times. Yes, your child is still screaming or giving you attitude right now. That's okay. You're going to do this. You're going to step and you're just going to do this breath. And then you're going to empathize. E is for empathy for BFAB. This time it's not about empathizing with your child, but about empathizing with yourself. You would say something to yourself like, I feel so overwhelmed right now. This is so hard. F is for fact. Right? Even though this chaos is happening, we are all safe right here, right now. How do we know we're safe? Because when we do a 911 call, think about this, right? We know when it's 911 and a true threat. This is terrible and stressful. It's not a true threat. So we have the space for reminding ourselves that we are safe right here, right now. A is for affirm. Now, yesterday for empathy, we affirmed by giving our children a gentle hug, reassuring them, helping them feel supported. In this case, A is for affirming us through a self-hug. Dr. Peter Levine has a self-hug, literally, that he uses with his patients who have trauma. And what you're doing is you take your right hand. This is my right hand. I think we're flipped. But this is my right hand, putting it under your left underarm, left hand over your right arm, and you gently squeeze. It starts to calm our nervous system down. Right? Now, if you think that's super unrealistic in these scenarios, I hear you, but I want you to simply keep breathing and say, I've got you as you're doing that. Because the reality is, if you don't, we're going to end up doing one of those strategies, right? Run, give in, shut down, one of those things. And finally is B, BFAB, B for believe, I can do this. I'm working on it. Take another deep breath. Okay, again, this may sound idealized, and without practicing, it is very hard. So here are your choices. Continue to respond the way you have been, which is, I'm guessing, exhausting. Or kindly be willing to try practicing Be Fabulous so you can soothe your own nervous system before trying to soothe your child's. Now, reflection exercises like we've been doing the last 2 days of the challenge are very helpful. So rather than trying to do them in the moment, in the beginning. So vividly reimagining previous challenging scenes using Be Fabulous in successful ways. What it does, it starts to imprint in our brain, making it easier to implement when it actually comes up in real life. It's how the Olympians actually do it. So let's compassionately take care of us. You are the parent, the most important person in your child's life. So please be kind to yourself. Becoming a fair parent isn't just for our kids. We have to learn to be fair to ourselves too. Now remember my story about Talina giving me that abrupt feedback in the car when I picked her up in grade 7? I didn't take it personally. Why? Because, well, I didn't realize at the time, but I was practicing Be Fabulous right then and there in the car. With intention, time, self-exploration in my therapy, and practicing, I was able to handle that situation in a way that helped me see, soothe, and provide an emotionally safe space for both Talina and me. So for your challenge today, reflect back on a time when you took something your child did or said personally. Now imagine using Be Fabulous on yourself in that moment. Notice what you feel. Again, this one may take a few reflections, but with time it will start to shift your state. So comment yes below if you commit to using Be Fabulous for you between now and tomorrow's live. And please check out more of my content. I have a YouTube channel as well. Check out my resources in my bio, where you can also subscribe to receive emails containing parenting tips and more information. And mark your calendars for Monday, April 15th at 9:30 for a special 1-hour Q&A, where I'll also be talking about the importance of repair with our kids and how to do that. Wonderful. Yes, thank you. Love it. And please remember to DM me, direct message me with questions too, so that I can look those up and answer them on Monday. So see you all tomorrow for day 10, T for Trust, the last day of the Become a Fair Parent mini challenge and raise unconditionally confident kids. I've got you, and I believe in you. Bye.